Welcome back to GA Fan TV. It is the review show. We're going to be looking back all the weekends. Hurling and football action will be, I suppose, looking at hurling first of all, which is a bit of a first, but I think there's definitely a lot of talking points from the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship this weekend. You think of that incredible win for Westmeath versus Wexford, which I don't think most people can still actually get their heads around it. And maybe when we see the highlights on the Sunday game a little bit later, we'll know more as to what actually went right for Westmeath and what went wrong for Wexford. But we will be looking at the games from the Munster Championship and some of the other remaining games from the Leinster Hurling Championship. And then later on, we'll look at some of the games from the Football Championship as well. Obviously, you had Mayo beating Kerry, which was such a big result for Mayo. Galway beating Tyrone. Sligo nicking a draw against Kildare. Brilliant result for Sligo. And we'll be running through all the weekend's football action as well, and we will clip that up for any football fans out there who don't want to sit through some of the weekend's hurling action. So, I suppose, Matthew, how's things with yourself? First of all, I mean, a mental weekend of GA. I mean, a lot of surprises, and even some games that we thought were going to be one-sided proved to be absolute stunners, and definitely a lot of talking points from this weekend's action.
Definitely so, Aaron, and thanks for having me on again on your channel. Yeah, like the hurling was absolutely immense today, and you couldn't expect anything less from a Munster hurling Super Sunday. It was absolutely outstanding, really. And Westmeath and Wexford, to be honest, once Wexford went 16 or 17 points ahead at half time, I just switched off the notifications, and it was like, this isn't going anywhere. But somehow Westmeath dragged it back, and what's mental now is Wexford could actually get relegated if they lose to Kilkenny next week and Antrim beat Westmeath, which is actually a realistic possibility. So it'd be mad to see Wexford play against, I don't know who would be Christy Ring champions. It'd be probably someone like Derry next year. It'd be absolutely mental. But looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely. And I suppose I was saying to you off air, a Cork man in a Limerick jersey. How does that come about?
Jeez, it happens to be the only jersey I have, which is tight fit. So, I said I'd wear it. Anyway, and the fact I go to college in Limerick, I've kind of a soft spot for Limerick, GA in general, more so the footballers than the hurlers, to be honest with you. But to be honest, look, it's a good enough county, it's a good enough jersey here. I would never wear a Kerry jersey, I'll put it that way. I'm more of a football fan now, but you know what? I probably put it back in the closet next week and take out the Cork jersey for next weekend's game in the Gaelic grounds. I'll put it that way. But the Limerick jersey on today, it'll probably be today of all days, to be honest.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I don't think, I was saying to you as well, like in terms of wearing other counties' colours, like there's probably a few counties I wouldn't mind wearing the jersey, but there's definitely a few where I definitely wouldn't. And I think the likes of Kerry, even Cork to a certain extent, I don't know if I could wear a Cork jersey. And then, the likes of Meath or Kildare, Mayo, these kind of counties, Tyrone probably as well. In fairness, Meath man says there's no excuse for the Limerick jersey. Says Meath man there. So definitely plenty of abuse swinging your way there. But I suppose we'll start anyway by looking at the game. I'll be honest with you, I never would have imagined ever when I woke up this morning when we were planning to do this show that the first game I would discuss was Wexford against Westmeath, because like Westmeath have been hammered in all their games in the Leinster Hurling Championship this year, pretty much. And I think the last thing we expected was for Westmeath to actually go away to Wexford in Wexford Park and beat them away from home. Like it's the first time Westmeath have beaten Wexford in the championship since 1940. They were 17 points down early on at the start of the second half, and they came roaring back. I think they outscored Wexford by something like 4-13 or to 5 points or something ridiculous and crazy like that. I mean, a phenomenal turnaround, and you'd have to say, like, this is probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the GA, if not the biggest. When you look at the sort of gap that is supposed to be there between these two sides as well, like the fact that they beat Wexford is a shock enough, but to come from 17 points down, it's just remarkable, really.
It's unreal. And as I said earlier, like I turned off just notifications once the halftime score went in, but fair play to Westmeath. What a performance. And I, Jason Keelan, coincidentally, a Westmeath man on my podcast this weekend, he wasn't confident at all that Westmeath would win this game. And he was, we were going over to the Antrim game. That's how little we thought of this game. during the week. We thought this would be a whitewash. Wexford should win the game. And we were thinking head to Westmeath and Antrim next weekend, but suddenly the pendulum has completely changed. And as I said earlier, Wexford could even go down now if they lose to Kilkenny and Westmeath lose to Antrim, which is a realistic possibility. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough watch for Wexford fans next week. And I actually recall you saying a few weeks back that Wexford could be in trouble with Joe McDonagh. I'm thinking, really, could they? Like, this should be Westmeath. This should, let's be honest. At home, especially in Wexford Park. But how Westmeath, but all the elements were against them when you think about it. They were on 0 points coming into today. 17 points down at half-time, away from home in Wexford Park, and they somehow win the game. It's incredible, really, and an incredible performance by Westmeath. And obviously, we'll know what went right for Westmeath, what went wrong for Wexford later on in the Sunday game. But looking at that scoreline alone, it's a remarkable result. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the biggest championship comeback in history. I was looking earlier at a 42 article earlier on today, and one that jumped off the page. There was only one that jumped off the page as significant as that in both codes, and that was in the football between Wexford and Meath in 2008. I'm not sure if any of the viewers remember that. It was a 10-point margin at half time, and then Wexford somehow came back into it. But this is a whole other level. Remarkable comeback for Westmeath, and congratulations to all of them. And I think Jason Keenan for the Loaf for Bread podcast will be jumping off the roofs at this stage now tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, absolutely remarkable. Like, Noel Mitchell getting a couple of late goals. He came off the bench. O'Brien with 2 goals and Niall O'Brien with 2 goals and 3 points as well. Like, just a phenomenal comeback from a Westmeath perspective. And as you said there, like, they came into the championship with 0 points. They haven't won. I think they beat Laois last year, but like, in terms of a big championship win against any of the big teams around the country, I can't remember like the last time. You might have to go as far back as 1940 since they've actually got like a big win against one of the sort of bigger sides. So to come back from 16 or from 17 points down, and you also question as well from a Wexford point of view, like, what on earth happened at Wexford Park? Like, how do you blow a 17-point lead against Westmeath? Like, with all due respect, like, that's incredible. Like,
it really is. And I don't know, it was the same story today. Obviously, it wasn't live shown, and we'll see later in the Sunday game. But a few weeks back, they were playing against Dublin. They had 48 shots. They hit 20 wides, around that number. And that was absolutely, you'd question how on earth did they lose that game. And I don't know what it is about Wexford. Like, it's been a common theme for them in years gone by. Like, they take ridiculous shots from ridiculous angles and eventually put them wide loads of times. I think they had, 18 wides in one game last year as well. Like, it's remarkable how they can fall, really, Wexford. But even take it back to last year, when you look at the order of the quarter final, they were 10 minutes away for beating Clare, and Clare are now in a Munster final. It's just remarkable how things just change, really. And to lose a 17 points up against a Westmeath team with no points on the board, Wexford are at home. 0 confidence for Westmeath. Westmeath fans don't even believe in themselves. And they somehow blow the lead. I don't know what went wrong. What did Darragh Egan actually say to them at halftime? Because by my understanding, maybe it was something like the Wexford lads were having a joke around at halftime or something. Because that is inexcusable. Like, I know Westmeath, fair play to them. Fair play to them. They got the win today, and fair play to them for winning by 2 points. But the other side of the coin, Wexford, like, how on earth did this happen to them? I really don't know. And I'd say the lads, like, coincidentally as well on my podcast side, lads, Ben Burney and Gary Dorn from the Wexford Hurling podcast, they were quite hopeful of Wexford in the next few weeks or so, and they were quite hopeful of beating Dublin last week. Now they have to worry about relegation. They must be tearing their hair out right now watching this. Like, I know you can lose a game to an underdog and stuff like that. Like, we see it in the football today with Kildare and Sligo, but that was a tight game throughout. This was 17 points at half time, and you somehow blow a lead. I don't think there's any coming back from this for Wexford. Even if they do stay up next week, it's a long road to come back for Wexford after this.
Yeah, and they are out of the championship as well. Like we'll look at the league table in a minute, but that does rule them out, and it does put Dublin through to the next round, and playing one of the Joe McDonough sides, unless they happen to beat Galway and we put ourselves in a Leinster final. But yeah, just madness really. Like, and even looking at it there, like Westmeath. I think like looking at it in score Bio, I don't know his first name, so apologies. But Egerton got a black card at one stage in the second half. So they were down to 14 men for a 10-minute period, and yet they still managed to come back from the dead. Like, I mean, does it show like that the gap maybe isn't as big as what we thought? Like, we seen Antrim obviously get a draw against Dublin earlier in the year. They were fairly competitive against Wexford as well. They were only beaten by 4 points. And obviously Westmeath got hammered by Galway and Kilkenny, beaten quite comfortably by Dublin. They drew at Wexford last year at home. They've now beaten Wexford away from home. Like, is it a sign that maybe the sort of gap between like the sides like Westmeath and Antrim, who we all would have perceived as, you know, relegation candidates from the Leinster Championship, does it show now that the gap is somewhat closed?
Maybe so, but yeah, you have to question as well how far have Wexford fallen back, because I don't think Wexford underage is that bad. Judged by the under-20 final the other night against them, Offaly, and even if, and I'll go back to my previous point about Wexford, even if they do stay up, you probably have Offaly coming up next year. We'll just say they beat Carlow in the Joe McDonough Cup final because they are favourites for next week. Best of luck to both sides, by the way. But if Offaly win that, they have the likes of Adam Screeney coming through the ranks. They've Charlie Mitchell. They still have Owen Call there. Like, Offaly, looking at that result today, will be licking their lips coming up to Liam McCarthy next season. And Wexford could go down next season, if not this season. You know, it's incredible how far they've fallen. And Antrim, like, it's a big result for Antrim as well, because Antrim have to go into that Westmeath game in Mullingar next week and go on and win it. You know, it's incredible, really, how things can turn. And like I was saying a few weeks ago, you don't know with this Wexford team. They could beat Kilkenny at home. Like, they beat them in Nolan Park last year. Like, who knows for this game? But honestly, and I think you think the same yourself, Aaron, I don't think they have a chance against Kilkenny. I know they're all but in the Leinster final. Fair play to Kilkenny for that. But I don't think they're even getting close to even Kilkenny's second team at this rate, Wexford. They are a shambles at the moment, and they need major reconstruction for next season. And will Darragh Egan stay on? Like, if Wexford go down this year, I don't think there's any coming back from that for Darragh Egan, and it's going to be very, very tough to pick themselves back up from that, despite the good performances from their under 20s. And there is players coming through there, AJ Redmond and Cian Byrne. Cian Byrne scored 14 points against Offaly. But that is a major, major kick in the teeth for Wexford today. And you don't know how they're going to respond after this.
Yeah, I agree as well. Like, it's hard to really know like how they're going to fight back, or how they're going to come back from this. Like, the fact that, as you said there, like they had a 16-point lead, they were so comfortable, and as you said, like, they were very close to beating Clare in the All-Ireland quarterfinals last year. They would have went into an All-Ireland semi-final against Kilkenny, having already beaten Kilkenny earlier in the year. So like, it's mad to think how far it's fallen. Like, they just don't look like they seem to be very reliant on Lee Chin, and whether it was a huge amount of complacency, maybe like the fact that they were 16 points up, 17 points up, and they thought, well, let's just completely turn our focus and turn our attention towards the Kilkenny game. Darragh Egan was maybe saying to the lads, like, don't get an injury, just manage the game, and to completely throw it away. Like, I was looking on Twitter, some people saying it was the worst result possibly in Wexford GA's history. A lot of people calling out the county board as well, which I think is fair when you look at the decline of the footballers in the last sort of 10, 15 years. Like, Wexford just seem in some mess, and like, they might get out of trouble and they might avoid relegation, depending on what happens between Antrim and Westmeath next week. But you're looking at Wexford and thinking, like, they could go back here. Like, if we've seen what Offaly, like what happened with Offaly, they went all the way down to the Christie Ring. If it can happen to them, it can happen to Wexford.
It definitely can. But even looking at the team sheet today, like, you look at them players that Wexford have at their disposal: Conor McDonald, Lee Chin, Jack O'Connor, Rory O'Connor. Like, they're normally quality players. And you just imagine, how on earth did they throw this game away? And I'm even looking at Scorpio now. They didn't even bring off any players at half time just to rest players for the Kilkenny next week. So what on earth went wrong? I don't know what it was really. Look, as I said previously, the underage is there for Wexford. The players are there. The manager, like Darragh Egan, nearly got to an All-Ireland semi-final last year against Kilkenny, I think it was. And now to lose to Wexford and be on the edge of relegation, it's some turn up for the books for Wexford. And I don't know how they're going to respond from this. Is it the most embarrassing result in Wexford's county history? It probably is, to be honest with you. And I think the players would have to take full responsibility for this. It's an incredible downfall. And yeah, I don't know how they recover really. But fair play to Westmeath again. What a win for them. I seen Kieran Doyle scored 11 points as well today, which was an excellent performance from him. But yeah, and Niall O'Brien, excellent performance as well. Fully deserved today. But for Wexford, what are they going to do next week if they go down to the Joe McDonagh Cup? And it's an interesting point actually you mentioned about Offaly. Could it happen to Wexford? Like it's a difficult one because you don't know who's coming up from the Christie Ring at the same time. I'm not sure. I don't think it's Mayo. I don't think London, Tyrone. I think it's Derry and Meath in the final. I think it's that anyway. So you'd imagine Wexford are better than either of them two teams anyway. Well, I hope that is the case for Wexford because if it isn't, my God, how far they've fallen after the Clare game. Like for going from 6th in the country realistically last season to all the way down to what, 12th or 13th? It's incredible, really, Ireland. Yeah, you don't know how Wexford Hurling's going to recover from this.
Absolutely. Yeah, Irish goalkeeper says here, what a result for Westmeath. Wexford won Leinster in 2019. They did, and it's incredible to think like you had a lot of Wexford fans who wanted Davy to leave and everything else. And look, maybe the same thing would have happened under Davy Fitz. We don't exactly know, but yeah, it's incredible to think of the fall of Wexford. Shane says, considering Westmeath, we're missing Killian Doyle and Angus Clark as well. Like they're two big players as well. I think Killian Doyle might be away in the UK or something. So a huge blow to not have him available and to still go and do what they've done. Makes the comeback even that bit more special in my opinion. Gavin was asking here, are you lads doing a separate football recap? Yeah, we'll be discussing the football probably in about half an hour or so, and we'll run through the football results. Just start with the hurling games this time around because I think there's probably more to talk about realistically in the hurling championship from the weekend. I suppose we'll circle back to Leinster a little bit later on, but we'll have a look at the Munster championship. It was Limerick 25 points, Tipperary 25 points. I suppose having them in reverse order really because Tipperary were obviously at home in Thurles, but yeah, I mean, your adopted county, Limerick, I suppose, nearly managed to pull out the victory towards the end. Obviously, late point by John McGrath, but a game that could have went either way. It looked like Tipperary were going to nick it. Then Limerick came roaring back in injury time, even though they were down to 14 men. Crazy game, and it goes down to the wire now on the final day.
It does, yeah. And at the same time, Limerick performed. I thought they performed validly today, especially in the second half. Like when you actually look at statistically, they had more scores from play than Tipperary, 19 points to 14. But actually, Limerick had 43 shots today, and Tipperary had 34. But I think Tipperary actually had 17 or 18 points specifically from turnovers today, which and it was probably evident on the TV. Like Cathal Barrett was outstanding on Seamus Flanagan. What a performance from him, probably nearly player of the week. And Noel McGrath was outstanding. I think Brian O'Mara had a very good game for centre back. I think Rhys Shelley in goal for Tipperary definitely grew into it in his championship debut. He was a bit shaky at the start, but he started to get pokes away in fairness to him. Jake Morris was just outstanding in the first half. Garrod O'Connor, brilliant in the forward line as well. Alan Toyne had yet another outstanding game today. And yeah, it could have gone either way. Could have gone to Tipperary. Like there was a line ball incident that it clearly touched the Limerick guy. I think it was Mike Casey's shin bone, and it went out and it was given a Limerick ball. And I think Limerick scored a point from that. So like who's to know? Like Tipperary could have easily won that game today if things went their way. They got that free through from John McGrath towards the end, and he was probably brought on a bit too late for my liking. I think John McGrath's an outstanding hurler and maybe should have been brought on earlier. But Liam Cahill might say in media afterwards it was the right time to bring him on, and it was. brilliant winning of the game at the end. And Cathal O'Neill was outstanding for Limerick, I have to say. Like, Garrett Haggerty wasn't good. Cian Lynch wasn't particularly on song today. Will O'Donoghue, all them players that usually step up for them weren't there today. But Cathal O'Neill, 5 points for play. Outstanding performance from him. Seamus Flanagan had that battle with Barris today from Tipperary, and Aaron Gillan, what a player he is, and probably one of the most underrated players when you talk about the best players in the country. Tom Morrissey, excellent. So brilliant performances on both sides. They had the fight and the brawl towards the end as well on the pitch. It didn't get involved with the fans, which was great at the same time. But yeah, brilliant game of hurling. And the Munster Championship delivers once again.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Limerick perspective, like, obviously 3 points that they've taken now from their opening 3 games, a win, a lose, and a draw is what they've ended up with after 3 games going into that decisive game against Cork. But as you said there, like, definitely a few players in this Limerick side that haven't really sort of shot the lights out so far, which is a bit of a surprise. Garrett Hegarty, Cian Lynch, Cole Hayes to a certain extent. Tom Morrissey looked good today, but I think he was quiet enough in a lot of the other matches. Aaron Gillan scored 6 points today, still played well, but was probably isolated in some ways, in that full forward line. And like, what do you think? Like, have Limerick declined ever so slightly? Has the competition improved? Did they go too strong in the league? Like, or is it still, because if they go out and beat Cork, they're gonna obviously progress on and get out of the Munster Championship. But what do you think? Like, what's been the reason for maybe some of Limerick's inconsistent results and performances so far?
I think, like, even today their shooting was very inaccurate. Like, even not looking at stats for a minute, look at the game itself. Like, Dermot Burns was hitting frees today that you'd normally see him put over the bar. Like, Tom Morrissey was near the same as well early on. He grew into it, in fairness. Garrett Haggerty was nearly anonymous. I know it was a brilliant that he came back into the team from a Limerick point of view, but I don't think he hardly touched the ball today, which is a worrying sign for Limerick. Cian Lynch missed an easy chance in the first half as well, and the Tipperary fans were absolutely jubilant after that. I remember that early on in the game. And he didn't have his best game either. Peter Casey even came on and looked a bit shaky. I don't know, is it just the players feeling the pressure a small bit today? I don't know what, like, at the same time, seeing the Cork lost, maybe it should have calmed the Limerick players more. Because let's imagine if Cork won the game. Limerick would have gone into a jittery and then made a lot more mistakes than they did, and Tipperary would have capitalised, and that was them out of the championship. So, like, you would have thought with Cork losing, Limerick would have had an extra verve with them. They didn't seem to do it in the first half, and Tipperary definitely picked off scores, but I think Limerick definitely, showed their class at the second half. I thought Declan Hannon stood up really well from centre back. I thought Graham Mulcahy coming on was outstanding. I think he hit 3 points from play in the second half, and he had a bit of spice to the game as well. Brilliant performance. And you have to credit Tipperary as well. Like, Tipperary were very, very good, and they still didn't win the game. Clare, very good against Limerick in the previous few weeks. And like, Cork will no doubt show it to Limerick next week because they have more of a backbone now this year. So, look, it's not going to be easy for Limerick this year. I just think it's a bit of both, really. The Limerick kind of off colour because they're kind of, nervous at a few games this season. But at the same time, Cork, Clare, Tipperary have all improved vastly this season. And I think that's mainly the reason why Limerick are so low down the table. But they could go and win against Cork next week in the Gaelic grounds, and then all the problems will be resolved. And then they'll go ahead and play a Leinster final team or something like that, probably to lose their Galway Kilkenny. And they'll have more confidence again. But this Limerick team is not done. Not done by a long shot. There's still more in Haggerty. There's still more in Lynch. There's still more in Mike Casey. Another thing before I switch over to you, the absence of Sean Finn was big.
Yeah.
I just think the Limerick backline looked a bit more jittery without him there. And he's that calming influence. And he's out for the full season now. So that's a big thing for Limerick going in the next few weeks. So definitely puts more pressure on the likes of Lynch and Haggerty to perform better than they did today for the next few weeks. I'm sure they will, but they need to work a lot harder to get that right.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think they showed a lot of good moments in the game, Limerick. Like, they showed a lot of battle, especially when they went down to 14 men and when Barry Nash was sent off. Like, I think there were 2 points down at that stage. To manage to fight it back and score the next 3 points to go a point in front, I think showed a tremendous amount of resolve, especially being away from home against a very good Tipperary side. Kurt says it's crazy to think if Cork beat or draw with Limerick, Limerick will be out of the championship. Yeah, absolutely mad. Like obviously Cork have the better score difference, so they would progress on the basis of that if it is a draw. As you were saying about Tipperary, like Garrod O'Connor, 9 points from him, very good performance. Conor Bowe when he came on was excellent. Jake Morris, Mark Keogh, Noel McGrath, all having very impressive performances there for Tipperary. And like they'd be good they didn't get over the line and get that win versus Limerick, but again, like Tipperary, they're still unbeaten in the championship. You know, they play Waterford next week. You'd fancy them to beat Waterford, and you'd fancy them to get into that Munster final, and possibly, you know, between them and Clare, I mean, that would be a cracker of a game.
But then again, like there could be a situation where Tip lose to Waterford and then Limerick and Cork draw. Then it goes down to scoring difference. We don't know yet about the scoring difference. I actually haven't checked it before I went on, but it'd be very interesting to see that in general. But like even John Milan was mentioning on RT Radio 1 today, like there still could be a kick in Waterford next week. Like, and I was thinking this to myself, okay, Waterford have done very, very poor this season. They've been probably an embarrassment for most of their games. But you'd be thinking two things. Number one, they don't want to disappoint the Waterford crowd even more, because they don't want to, you know, fire them up in the next year or so. And Davy Fitz will be under massive pressure if there's another capitulation like there is in the last few weeks. So I'm sure Davy Fitz will be saying to his players, look, this is pride now. No pressure on you. Go out and deliver. And another thing as well, they may as well put out their first team, because like there's no other games after this. So, and there's not club in Waterford until what, July, August? So that's a long time. So I just think they'll put out a strong team, and there's an extra incentive as well to possibly knock one of Limerick, Cork, Tipperary out of the championship as well. So there's a lot of things actually going for Waterford, despite the fact that they're out of the championship. They still have a bit to play in it. Do I think they'll beat Tipperary next week? Probably not. But I think they're still going to be fighting them next week, and Tipperary still have to be on their A game to beat them. But as for Tipperary, the signs do look good. Like their performance today was outstanding. Their performances against Cork and Clare as well were very, very good, very pleasing. And when you think about it, last year we talked about Wexford being the sixth best team in the country and coming close to Clare. Tipperary were on a similar trend to Waterford are this year. They were one of the most laughing stocks of Munster hurling last season. Like they sat their manager Colin Bonner for no particular reason, really. They lost 4 games really without a whimper. Like that game against Cork was just depressing from the Tipperary fans' point of view, you know. And to come back and perform as well as they did this season, it's a credit to Liam Cahill and his management team. And I think Dan McCormick said, and Joanne and the lads today, that they put a lot in at Christmas, before Christmas and all that. They did a lot of running and training sessions, and you could definitely see it today. The game Cahill had them drilled, but at the same time, I know they're performing well, but they still have to be on their complete A game against Waterford next week if they are going to be sure of progressing to the Munster final possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of comments flowing in here. Meadman says, will you be doing predictions for the lower tier hurling competitions like Joe McDonough final, Christy Ring? Yeah, definitely will do predictions when those finals do come around in a couple of weeks' time. I think Mead and Derry and Offaly and Carlow in the respective finals. So definitely be interesting to see what happens in those, and hopefully they are on TV or accessible somewhere. I suppose moving on then to the other game that took place in the Munster Championship, it was Clare 2-22, Cork 3-18, a late point from Jeremy Ryan getting Clare over the line. Clare, of course, who led by 9 points at one stage early on in the second half. Cork fought back with Declan Dalton and Patrick Horgan obviously getting decisive goals late on. And another tough one from a Cork perspective, another game where you've battled back and fought back from the dead, but in the end it's Clare that take the points. And the fact that obviously Cork are going away to Limerick next week, it's going to be tough for Cork, I think, to get themselves out of it and get them and progress on. And that's despite, like, they have played well in a lot of these games.
They have, and that's the disappointing thing. I said to you after the Tipperary game, like, there is fight there. There is players there for Cork, and there is reasons to be proud as a Cork supporter. But the problem is Clare, Tip and Limerick are just better than us at the moment. Like, you look at Clare, today even. Like, they had 41 shots compared to Cork's 34. Like, Clare dominated proceedings, and they really threw the game away later on, Clare, with some ridiculous wides, really. I think Tony Kelly hit a few freeze wides. Like, to be fair to Tony Kelly, he scored 2-4, but he nearly backs up that win afterwards with a few wides. Peter Duggan then took over the free-taking duties and he missed. So you were thinking, is there a chance here for Cork? Then Patrick Horgan scores that goal. And at that point, Aaron, I'll be honest with you, I thought Cork were going to win it. I thought the momentum was there with the Cork team after that. But fair play to Clare, I have to say. Like, David McInerney, I think it was mentioned on the RT today that like, he was the guy who missed the flight of the ball for the Patrick Horgan goal, and he was sort of to blame for that. But he goes ahead and scores 2 points after that, which is amazing resilience, to be fair to him. And Dermot Ryan, what a score towards the end to win it for Clare. There was pandemonium, obviously, in the ground afterwards from a Clare point of view, but from a Cork point of view, it's a kick in the teeth. It really is. Not because they performed badly or anything like that. It's just the way they lost the game. And honestly, do I think a draw was a fair result? If it was a draw, probably. It maybe was a fair result. Maybe that's just me being boys Cork fan and all that. But fair play to Clare, fair play to Dermot Ryan, and they're the Munster final now, and they definitely fancy their chances, considering it's most likely, I'll stress them words now, that Tipperary will join them.
Yeah, like, and I suppose, like, the most, like, I'd imagine as a Cork supporter, like, one of the most disappointing things maybe from a Cork perspective is, as you said, like, there's been a lot of good performances, and, you know, that's kind of been frustrating, but at the same time, like, there has been some inconsistencies in their performances as well. Like, there does seem to be lapses throughout games where Cork will switch off for 10-15 minutes and then have to drag a game back. Like, you had to battle back against Tipperary, you had to battle back in this game. You think to the Limerick game earlier on in the league as well on the opening day. Like, it does seem to be a bit of a common trend with Cork, and I imagine that is a little bit worrying, because if you have a period where you switch off for 15-20 minutes against Limerick, like, if they're on it, especially in the Gaelic rounds, like, Limerick will put Cork to bed, like, especially if they're on it. So, like, that's definitely a worry from a Cork perspective, I'd imagine.
Definitely is, and probably the over-reliance on Patrick Horgan, like, brilliant performance by him. I think he scored 1-4 from play or around that number. I'll have to double check it now, but an excellent performance by him. But I said it a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again, we can't keep relying on Patrick Horgan every week. Like, he's 35 now. You know, there's other players that need to step up. Like, other than the goal, I don't think Dickie Dalton did enough today. I'll be honest with you. Yes, Shane Kingston scored that point later on. It looked like a crucial score for Cork towards the end, but he needs to be starting. Shane Kingston, he's probably one of our best forwards, and he's left on the bench, which is mind-boggling, to be honest with you. There's a few mind-boggling selections and all that. Sean O'Donoghue came in for his first appearance since the Limerick game in the league in February, which is a positive sign. I think he's a brilliant defender, a brilliant strong defender, strong runner as well. And Damien Callahan played well at times today as well, to an extent. But yeah, there was some instances that Cork struggled, especially under the high ball. Like, the Tony Kelly goal in the first half was almost suicidal. You know, I know it was a well-taken goal from TK himself, but the Cork should have dealt with that much better than it did. It was a soft goal to concede then. But yeah, I just think more forwards need to step up. Brian Roach had another stormer of a game today. He's been excellent in the Munster Championship campaign so far. He scored another 2 points this afternoon, and he was outstanding. But there needs to be more performances like that for Cork, and to progress even further. What I will say, though, there is fight. There is fight. You wouldn't have said that in the last few years. Like, a lot of Cork teams would just collapse, and it was embarrassing at times. I think back to Jimmy Barry Murphy's last game as manager. I think it was in 2015 against Galway. Like, in that All-Ireland quarter-final, Cork completely out of it and just down tools completely. But there seems to be a change in mentality now under Pat Ryan. The players are fighting. They're simply fighting, and I'd definitely give us a chance against Limerick next week. Do I think we'll win it in the Gaelic grounds? Probably not. I think Limerick are still an unbelievable side if they switch it on just like that. But I think if they do what they did against Clare at times in the game today, like, play the long ball into Patrick Horgan, because Limerick were vulnerable against Tipperary today without Sean Finn. That could be an avenue where Cork kind of excel. So we'll have to see over the next week how that progresses. But I'd be still confident, even if Cork failed to make it out of Munster, I'd be still confident about Cork in the years ahead. And obviously an under-20 final as well to look forward to against Offaly on the bank holiday weekend in June. So all on the up for Cork hurling, and Pat Ryan is the right man to take this team forward.
Yeah, Kurt says here for Cork, it's facing the defending All-Ireland champions, going for 4 in a row this year. If they do manage to beat Limerick, anything short of winning the All-Ireland this year would be a real letdown. Yeah, like, I mean, it's a huge game for Cork. And if they were to go away to Limerick and be the ones to essentially knock them out of the championship, like, it would, the amount of confidence it would give the Cork side. And I think regardless of whether you get to a Munster final or whether you finish third, I think Cork would have to be considered a serious threat then for the remainder of the All-Ireland series. I suppose from a Clare perspective, like, as you said, like, Tony Kelly was excellent, 2-4 from him. Aidan McCarthy, very good. Very good performance. You know, Peter Duggan looking good as well. Shane O'Donnell. So, like, from a Clare perspective, like, I mean, they've won 3 games on the bounce now. They've beaten Cork, Waterford and Limerick in this spell. Like, are they the favourites now potentially for the All-Ireland, or would you still look at Limerick as the favourites?
Right now, you'd probably have to go for Clare. Kilkenny would be not too far behind either, but they're still, like, Clare performed well, and they performed well in a previous game so far. They had a brilliant win today, brilliant win against Limerick, and a brilliant win against Waterford. Fair play to them. But my issue with Clare in terms of the All-Ireland, there's always a capitulation in them. Like, you look at the Kilkenny game last season, they could see, 16 points in one half of hurling, which was absolutely criminal to an extent. Against Tipperary this year, they could see 5 goals in one game, which is inexcusable, really. Like, I just think the Clare have the players, there's no doubt about that. Like Mark Rogers, Shane O'Donnell, Tony Kelly, outstanding players, David Fitzgerald as well. But there's always that sense of capitulation in Clare. And I don't know what it is about them. Maybe they could change their ways in the few weeks ahead as the championship progresses. But they have to sort that out. If they don't sort that out in the next few weeks, they probably won't win the All-Ireland, I'll be honest with you. But if they do sort it out, they probably will. But at the same time, this sort of capitulation happened in the first round of Munster as recently as this season against Tipperary. So there's still that lingering at the back of their minds. So right now, I'd probably have Kilkenny as favourites for the All-Ireland, if I'm honest with you, because of Clare's, capacity to bottle it in big situations. But in terms of player for player, in terms of the manager, I actually think Clare have the upper hand. It's just a mentality thing with Clare at the moment. But if Limerick make it through against Cork next week, you have to fancy Limerick to go on and win the All-Ireland. Even if they don't make the Munster final, then probably an extra game for Limerick would probably suit them even more, facing a Joe McDonagh Cup team. So it'd be interesting to see in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, all right. Like, I probably would agree. Like, I think Kilkenny, in terms of the players that they have available to them, in terms of the fact that they have that mental sort of fortitude to win a lot of the big games, obviously semi-finals, there's All-Ireland winners in that side. I know there's a few in the Clare team as well, but All-Ireland club winners, players that have played in the All-Ireland final last year. And Kilkenny are probably going under the radar with the fact that they're playing in the Leinster Championship. Like, they're not getting as much competitive games as what Clare are getting, and I don't think there's much hype around Kilkenny, probably because of that. But I think between Clare, Kilkenny, and you'd still have to put Limerick in that bracket as well. Like, I think, once if they can get past Cork, and then you'd fancy them to get to a quarter final, and then possibly beyond that as well. So Limerick definitely still in the conversation. I think Tipperary definitely have to be in the conversation as well. In fairness. We'll have a look at the league table anyway, or the Munster round robin table, and how things look. So as you can see there, Clare are sitting on 6 points. So they're guaranteed to be in the Munster final. Tipperary are in second with 4 points, and you've got Cork and Limerick both level on 3 points. So as you said there, like, if Cork and Limerick were to draw and Tipperary were to lose, it would go down to score difference. And I suppose it would depend on how much Tipperary were beaten by. But if Tipperary were beaten by more than 4 points, let's say, then Limerick, or more than 5 points actually, then Limerick would be the ones to progress. So, like, when you look at the scenario, like, going into next weekend's final games, it's gonna be so exciting seeing them, and there's so much to play for as well, which is great.
It is. It's absolutely brilliant, and another Super Sunday of hurling action as well in Munster, which is going to be absolutely wall-to-wall action, definitely. And but at the same time, as I said earlier, I know a lot of people are saying Waterford, Tipperary will, just they'll absolutely hammer Waterford in the next few weeks. But the more I think about John Milan's comments on RT Radio today, the more I think Waterford could put up a big performance. I just genuinely think so. I just think they can't go out of this year without a whimper. That's my honest feeling on it, because the Waterford fans will not take lightly to Waterford's performances already this season. The Waterford players have one chance now to redeem themselves somewhat. They just go on and beat Tipperary and put in a massive performance. Will they beat them by 5 points? They could do. They still have the players like Austin Gleeson, Desi Hutchinson, Patrick Fitzgerald, Stephen Bennett, if they're on form. That's the key word here, on form. And if those situations were to happen, if Waterford were to beat Tipperary by 5 points or more, and Limerick and Cork were to draw, then it would actually be Cork at the Munster final against Clare, and Limerick would be in third place. So realistically, I think Limerick would probably take third place. They'd snap your hand off for that, to be honest with you. But it's going to be a very, very exciting day of hurling. And don't sleep on Waterford is all I'd say.
Yeah, an interesting comment here from Stockroom, who says the ref road tip today. Maybe an interesting point. Like, what was your thoughts on some of the refereeing decisions in that Tipperary Limerick game earlier? Like, I mean, the sending off for Barry Nash, I thought was a little bit harsh, to be honest with you. Thought there was easy decisions going both ways. There was soft frees both ways, but that just seems to be the case, really, in my opinion, in the GA. I think other than that, the referee did all right, in my opinion. But what do you think?
And as I mentioned earlier, like, I know decisions would swing in roundabouts. That Limerick sideline ball, it should have gone to Tipperary, and then Barry Nash sending off should have gone the way of Limerick. So it kind of evens itself out, Aaron. I know there's inconsistencies in referees, and we know that. Like, it's a tough job for them, simple as that. But once the decisions even themselves out, I'm happy with that. Like, even, I know we're going to football now, but even the live stream for the Cork and Dublin game early on in the league, I know Ian Maguire got sent off, but then Lee Gallen gets sent off. And you think, that's level playing field then. As long as it's levelled out as the game goes on, that's fine. I'd be okay with that. And I was okay with the referee today, to be honest with you. I just want to applaud the two teams today on a brilliant action-packed day of hurling today.
Absolutely. I suppose we'll run through the two other games in Leinster very briefly. So it was Kilkenny, 27 points, Dublin, 21 points, and it was Galway, 529, Antrim, 122. So very comprehensive result there from a Galway perspective. I've seen Conor Whelan got 2 goals, Evan Nyland with 8 points on the score sheet, Conor Cooney with 7 points as well. So very good result there from a Galway perspective, and taking care of business, unlike what we've seen with Wexford earlier today. And then the Dublin game, I didn't see any of it, unfortunately, but hopefully catch the highlights a little bit later on. From what I heard, like, Dublin competed fairly well, and it was just more so in the sort of final quarter where Kilkenny started to pull away, like, especially in the second half. But, like, as a Dublin fan, I'm not too disheartened with that. Like, losing 6 points away to Kilkenny and Nolan Park, it's not the worst result in the world, in fairness. And I suppose with the fact that obviously Westmeath beat Wexford, it means that Dublin will progress out of the Leinster Championship, which I think was the aim at the start of the year. And I suppose it takes the edge off the Galway game ever so slightly now.
It does, yeah. And to be honest, these were non-events today. Like, Galway, fair play to them, getting over the line against Antrim. But Galway are setting their bar higher than Wexford, let's be honest. I know we mentioned Wexford there, but Galway are in a much better place than Wexford at the moment, and they're going for all Ireland titles. As for the Kilkenny-Dublin game, to be honest, I only watched a bit of the highlights in the Saturday game last night. It's boring enough encounter, to be honest with you. You knew Kilkenny were going to get through. A pleasing aspect for Kilkenny, 2 things really. Mossy Keown's performance was brilliant, I was hearing last night, so fair play to him. And Billy Drennan was back at the 26, so he's back fully fit for Kilkenny as well. So, like, Kilkenny are coming, and I would, like, if Limerick lose to Cork next week, I'd back Kilkenny to go on all the way and win the All-Ireland because of the players they have, because of the mentality they have, and because they have the likes of TJ Reid. And before we leave this games, congratulations to TJ Reid, and now the top scorer in Championship, unless Patrick Orban took him over today. I'm not entirely sure, but as of last night, he was the top scorer in Championship hurling, so fair play to him.
Yeah, and you'd imagine, like, I suppose both players are a similar age profile, so it might be it's a bit like the Ronaldo Messi situation there, like trying to keep track of goals and everything else. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what happens there over the next while. But yeah, looking at the league table, so this is how things finish up. Galway and Kilkenny both on 7 points. Dublin with 5 points. Obviously, the top three they're guaranteed. In which order we don't know yet. You've got Wexford with 2 points, Westmeath with 2, and Antrim with 1. I suppose looking at it there, I mean, what do you reckon? Do you think Galway will be too strong for Dublin? There's no chance for Dublin to get into a Leinster final. Do you think that game obviously at Croke Park next weekend? And in terms of relegation, like obviously Antrim have to play Westmeath. So what do you reckon could happen there as well?
It's a tough one. I think it's a very tough one. I honestly think Antrim are in massive danger. I know Wexford, we talked about them earlier on the show as being, it was the worst result in Wexford's history and they could even go down. But Westmeath will be buoyed after that result. And the game's on in Mullingar next week. So I'd actually worry more about Antrim rather than Westmeath. And considering Antrim got a bit of a trimming today of Galway, I'd have to fancy Westmeath to win that game and probably Antrim to go down, unfortunately. And unfortunately for your good selves, Aaron, I think Dublin are not getting into the Leinster final this year. I think Galway should dispose them pretty easily. But at the same time, Joe McDonagh Cup winner, I think, is who Dublin will face. So, like, Offaly Dublin, that's still a tight affair, I think. Like, Offaly Hurling's on the rise at the moment. So, like, Dublin still have to be on their toes. Remember what happened in 2019 against Laois? And I did predict at the start of the year, before we leave the hurling chat, that Offaly would beat Dublin in that round in the preliminary quarter-final at the start of the season. It's looking that way. It's looking that way the fixture will occur. Will the result? We'll have to see.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting point, all right. And I think that game, I think it will be fixed for Tullamore as well. If that is what happens, if Offaly do beat Carlow. So that will be, that'd be one cracker of a game. And definitely from a Dublin perspective, like to be thinking back to obviously what happened in 2019 versus Laois and making sure it doesn't happen again. I suppose player of the week and moment of the week from the All-Ireland Hurling Championship before we move on to the football championship action. What are you thinking?
Player of the week, I'd probably have to go Niall O'Brien, don't I? From Westmeath. What a performance with 2-3, and to get Westmeath pulling and dragging back into the game, brilliant performance by him. But special mentions as well to Dermot Ryan of Clare, who was excellent against Cork, and Cathal Barrett at fullback for Tipperary, who had a brilliant hustle with Seamus Flanagan today. Moment of the week, you can't look past Westmeath, really. What a victory. What a victory for the whole of Westmeath today. And Wexford Hurling is in the mud completely.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that as well. I think moment of the week, you can't look past Westmeath's win versus Wexford. I mean, to come back from 16 points, 17 points down, like you're talking about probably one of the moments of the year, to be honest with you, let alone moments of the week. So I think I would definitely agree with that. I think Dermot Ryan's late point versus Cork, I think you could argue was up there, but I don't think you can take away from the Westmeath win in fairness. And then in terms of player of the week, I think I picked Tony Kelly before in my preview show during the week, so probably lean towards him as player of the week. 2 goals and 4 points. Give myself a bit of credit there for the prediction. I rarely get them right in fairness, so I might as well take the wins while I can. I suppose we'll move on to the football action then. So I suppose we'll start by looking at the Kerry and Mayo match. So a huge result there from a Mayo perspective. It was Kerry 17 points, Mayo 119. Massive result there for Mayo. Owen McLaughlin obviously getting himself a goal. Brilliant displays from the likes of Ryan O'Donoghue, Jordan Flynn, James Carr, excellent as well. And Kerry beaten at home in Killarney for the first time in the championship since 1995, and just the second time that Mayo have beaten Kerry in the championship since 1996. So what a result and what a day for the men in green and red.
Yeah, and I was actually at the game, so I actually watched history in Fitzgerald Stadium, the first Kerry team to be beaten at home in the championship since 1995, and I was loving it. I really was. Brilliant win for Mayo yesterday. I actually thought it'd be a full house at Fitzgerald Stadium. Like a strange kind of an atmosphere. There was a load of Kerry supporter, obviously, but Kerry just didn't have anything to show about really. But Mayo, like, there wasn't much Mayo fans. I thought there'd be more, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, what a win for Mayo. I thought they were superb. Like the midfield particularly. Dermot O'Connor, Matty Varan were brilliant at the high fielding. They were brilliant at driving up the field. Aidan O'Shea, brilliant to the forward line. Ryan O'Donoghue scoring 4 points in the first half, which was absolutely incredible tally, and resulted actually in Jason Foley being, Dylan Casey being brought off at half time, and Kerry just didn't recover really. And when you look at the game overall, Mayo should have had above 5 goals. They really should have. They should have had 2 in the first 10 minutes, really. Like Dermot O'Connor hitting one straight at Shane Ryan. Then it was James Carr's turn. James Carr had another chance in the first half. They eventually brought it up with Owen McLaughlin. And I suppose there's a lesson for forwards of this as well, to drill the ball low rather than at goalkeeper height. That the Mayo players were always drilling it at Shane. It was a great save by Shane Ryan, no doubt about it. But they were always at the goalkeeper's height, very, very comfortable. But Owen McLaughlin comes on, speeds onto the ball, back of the net, bottom corner, what a finish. And Mayo won the game in the end. And brilliant victory for Mayo. Honestly, I thought Tommy Conroy would get the goal since coming on, but it was Owen McLaughlin. Pleasant surprise there, but brilliant win for Mayo. And it's a big victory for morale boosting as well, because you think about the criticism that was directed at Mayo by some forms of the media after the Roscommon game. It was pretty grim. And for Mayo to bounce back and get a win in Killarney, which was an outstanding achievement, brilliant win for them. But as for Kerry, the over-reliance of David Clifford, I'm sorry to say it, Aaron, from a Kerry point of view. 8 points yesterday. He got, I think, nearly 50% of his, the scores Kerry got from play were from David Clifford himself. So they're way too reliant on him, and they need other players to step up to the plate. But to be fair, Killian Spillane wasn't on the bench yesterday. I'm not sure why. Was he injured, or I don't know what was the story there. But if he came on, maybe he could have made a difference. But he didn't in the end. And Mayo won the game.
Yeah, and I suppose where do you think it went right for Mayo as well, though? Because like they were like, it was a fairly dominant victory. Like, I know they won by 5 points, but like Kerry never led in the game. You know, Mayo scored the opening points. They controlled the game. They were always in front. There were moments in the match where Kerry started to claw their way back into it. But as we were saying, like Mayo were dominant in terms of their forwards. Like Jack Carney was excellent as well, like playing in behind the full forward line, and defensively as well. Like, I think I'm not too sure who you backed going into this game, but the main reason why I predicted Kerry to win this game was the fact that I looked at it and thought David Clifford, Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Tony Brosnan. Like, how is that Mayo fullback line, the inexperience of that Mayo fullback line, going to contain those forwards in the likes of Jack Coyne, David McBride, and Sam Callinan? But in fairness, they were absolutely brilliant. And like, I think Mayo, like, as much as you give the forwards credit, I think you need to give the defenders a lot of credit as well.
You definitely would, and it was actually, I actually backed Mayo during the week. I'll just put that in there, and I was probably the only podcaster to say it, so I need to pat myself on the back there. And brilliant. And I also said Aidan O'Shea would get the winning score in a 1 point victory, but he got man of the match instead. So, well, it's close enough. It's close enough, to be fair to me. But when you look at the defence, David McBride actually went on Clifford. And when Pádraig O'Hore's name got called out on the Tannoy yesterday, I thought instantly O'Hore's going after Clifford, and we're going to go for round 2 here. But it actually turned out McBride went on. And it was incredible to see that in a way. Like, Callan was outstanding. Jack Coyne, I think Dunica McHugh, both offensively and defensively, was superb. I thought Conor Loftus was very good as well. Paddy Durkin didn't start, which was a pleasant surprise, really. I didn't see that coming at all. But it just showed Mayo have no more options in defensive terms. And you wouldn't have said that about Mayo teams in the last few seasons. So fair play to them for that. And not only defensively as well, the way the players worked for each other. Like, in the first half, I was behind the goal that Kerry were scoring into. And in the first half, who did I see back there defending and doing his donkey work? Aidan O'Shea. You wouldn't have seen that in the past few seasons. And then in the second half, when Mayo were scoring into that particular goal, I had to look again because I couldn't believe it. David McBride was actually in the forward line. And I was like, seriously, is that number 3? And he was, and it was a brilliant, brilliant performance. They worked as a team. They looked fitter than Kerry. I just thought they looked fitter on the field. And maybe the 6 weeks did Mayo good. And it did them good. Fairness to them. I thought the kickouts for Mayo was a major aspect of them winning the game as well. Like Colin Reeve, he can pick out anybody. What an outstanding kick he has. And the midfield Mayo have, I'll say it again, Mayo have probably the best midfield in the country at the moment, with Dermot O'Connor and Matthew Moran. But in
Yeah.
an attacking sense, running up the field and feeding the ball, they're absolutely outstanding. And probably the reason Aidan O'Shea got man of the match as well was for that goal for Owen McLaughlin. It was a brilliant finish by McLaughlin. But take it back, Aidan O'Shea was the guy to field the ball. And Mayo wouldn't have gone anywhere without that catch. He played it into, I think it was Tommy Conroy, did a bit of 1-2 with Owen McLaughlin, back in the net. And that was finished the game in the end. So I think from 1 to 15, Mayo were absolutely outstanding yesterday. And Kevin McStay as well should be given huge credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt says, looking at Mayo, I'd be very concerned that this is another year Mayo peaking too early, then it will not get it done when it matters because they have a bad habit of doing this recently. I don't know about that, to be honest with you. Like, I think the fact that they had a long break, like they had that 6-week break, and I think that's done them the world of good, to be honest with you, because they had a few challenge matches. I think they played Tyrone, maybe another team as well in a challenge match. So like they were bang up for it coming into this. They looked sharper, they looked fitter. As you said, like, maybe Kerry went too strong against Clare, like, because Kerry looked a lot sharper and fitter in that match than they did in this game, in fairness. Rommel says here, Mayo fans didn't travel. They couldn't find accommodation due to the government filling Killarney with illegal economic migrants. GA attendance are failing due to their policies. Yeah, I wouldn't know really about all of that, to be honest with you, but I'd imagine the ticket prices, or sorry, the hotel prices. The hotel prices have gone up all across the country. In fairness, so maybe, but it was an early game. Like, was that what, 3:00 was the kick? Was the throw in? So there would have been enough time, I'd imagine, for Mayo fans still to make it home, albeit it is a long journey, in fairness, to do. And obviously, us Stubbs don't really have to make too many journeys, so it's probably coming a bit rich coming from me. The Kerry team are the most overhyped team I have seen. They only beat a not so great Dublin team in the last kick of the game. It's an interesting point. I mean, it might sound a bit harsh, but when you actually look at it, they beat Dublin, who didn't have Con O'Callaghan, didn't have Paul Mannion that day, didn't have Jack McCaffrey, didn't have Cluxton. Like, it was a Dublin team that played very poorly on the day as well, in my opinion. Somehow dragged themselves back into the game with the goal from Cormac Costello. They had to beat Mayo in the quarterfinals when Mayo weren't at the races at all last year. And the Galway side, for as good as they are, they felt more like an up-and-coming team last year. Their first time playing in an All-Ireland final, I think, since 2001. So, like, is there anything behind that? Like, did we maybe buy too much into the Kerry hype last season?
Maybe so, when you think about it, because you look at their run to the final last year. Obviously, Munster was a write-off. In the quarterfinal against Mayo, they were facing a Mayo team that had injury problems. And you look back at that and think, yeah, that's kind of true there. And against Dublin, I thought Dublin nearly deserved to win it. Like, the game went on for another 5 minutes. I think Dublin would have won the game. Simple as. And against Galway, let's not forget, Galway were ahead at half-time. And Kerry needed a miraculous performance, especially from the man inside, David Clifford, to pull it out of the bag in the end. And it's an interesting point, actually. And someone has brought this point up to me as well. Jack O'Connor doesn't do 2 in a row. When you look at the history of Kerry GA over the last 3 seasons, when you look at his last All-Ireland victory in 2009, they went out the next year against Down and lost somehow in Croke Park in 2010. How that happened to this day, I don't know. I really don't know. You look at the history of Kerry, the recent history between the two, and you would have thought someone would have been crazy to say that result, but it did happen. And Kerry were out of the All-Ireland contention then too. So yeah, I think Kerry are a bit overhyped as well. Like, you look at even their scores yesterday, Clifford did the majority of it. And I think Kerry had to work harder for the scores rather than Mayo. Like, Mayo were picking off some beautiful scores yesterday. And it was almost effortless at times. But when you look at Kerry, Clifford basically carried them. Like, he took about, I think it was 3-4 shots near the 45-metre line. Some ridiculous angles. But of course, Clifford's going to kick them over because he's that calibre of a footballer. And you don't know how he does it at times. But the other players, this is my point earlier, the other players for Kerry are not stepping up right now. Like, Sean O'Shea, fair enough, he does in some games. But you look at Paul Gainey, you look at Tony Brosnan, who didn't score at all yesterday, which is unthinkable. Stephen O'Brien on the bench isn't really getting a look in. right now, like their midfielders aren't as prolific as the Mayo midfielders, for example, in Dermot O'Connor, Jack Barry. I don't think they're actually that good. So in terms of the All Ireland, I don't think Kerry will win it this year. I think Kerry fans should be incredibly worried about it. In terms of getting out of the group, I think they should be much better than Cork and Lowe. Let's be completely honest here. But for the All Ireland, I don't think they're good enough this season. And yeah, it might be a tough fact for Kerry fans to accept, but it is a fact.
Yeah, because even the bench as well, as you said, like they brought Adrian Spillane, Brian O'Buglock, Rory Murphy, and Stephen O'Brien on, and none of them scored. And I remember Rory Murphy had an effort that went wide. Stephen O'Brien had one that went wide late on. Like, it's mad because we used to associate Kerry with a team that had a very good panel. Like they had the likes of, Killian Spillane would come off the bench, Adrian Spillane. You were thinking maybe someone like Paul O'Shea or Paul Walsh will maybe get in the panel and make an impact coming off the bench. But those lads don't seem to be in the panel. And for whatever reason, like, yeah, Kerry just don't seem to be getting enough sort of from the rest of their forwards. Like, Paul Gainey's obviously been around, quite a while now. He scored 3 points. And to be fair, I don't think he had a bad game in fairness. But aside from him and obviously David Clifford, who had an exceptional game, like Sean O'Shea was fairly anonymous for large parts. And like, yeah, like I don't know if Kerry's panel is all that compared to the likes of Mayo, Dublin. I know Dublin have been very inconsistent in terms of performances, but you look at the panel of players that they have, you would have to say it's stronger than Kerry's panel.
You would definitely think so. I was looking at the benches yesterday and looking at the two of them at half time particularly, and I was thinking Mayo have a better bench here. Paddy Durkin, Stephen Cohen were named on the bench yesterday because they were late changes. Paul Gahor was initially named on the bench yesterday. Tommy Conroy was there. Jason Doherty. These are brilliant footballers. Like, you look at Paul Towie as well. Paul Towie didn't even get a minute on the pitch yesterday either. So yeah, I think Mayo have a much, much better panel, much better bench than Kerry do at this particular moment in time. And I just wonder, I think one of your comments said this as well. This might be a bit overhyped from Kerry. You just think, like, take Clifford out of it. If you just take David Clifford out here, I think of Kerry are very, very ordinary. Very ordinary. And even when you look at, I know people point towards, and I think you've pointed towards as well yourself in previous videos, on why Kerry could be successful is their minor success from 5 in a row. But when you look at their minor success, particularly in 2017, for example, David Clifford scored most of their scoring, for example. Like, if David Clifford wasn't on the pitch in the Munster Championship against Cork, Cork would have beaten. This was a Cork team with Carl O'Mahony, Mark Keane, all them players. They would have beaten Kerry. There wasn't much in the Kerry team other than David Clifford. And even in the games against, say, Derry in the next few rounds in the All-Ireland series, Kerry would have struggled without David Clifford's influence. He's just a freak of a footballer. If you take him out, I think Kerry are very, very ordinary. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I think I'd agree with your commenter there. I think Kerry are bit too overrated after their win last year, and I think David Clifford is a brilliant, brilliant footballer, but there isn't brilliant footballers around him. So that's a worrying sign for Kerry.
Yeah, like, and I think the likes of Sean O'Shea, like, we know how good he is, in fairness, like, and if you'd expect him to click into gear in the later parts of the All Ireland series, and even the likes of Tom O'Sullivan, Gavin White, these lads, like, they do have a lot of great players other than Clifford, but I feel like a lot of them maybe haven't performed, and maybe some of the fringe players haven't really been able to make an impact for Kerry as well. Tom says the Rossies game was not a fair reflection on us. It was a week after winning the league title. Come on. That's not right. Yeah, probably, and I think it showed. Like, I think Mayo probably had, a lot of intense games, one after another. And, you could argue, like, if there's probably not much, because you look at Galway playing a lot of matches and obviously winning the Connacht Championship, like, it's probably nearly better to actually not win the Connacht Championship, possibly. Like, if Mayo do go on to do something special later on in the year. The other game, I suppose, from the group stages was Galway, 16 points, Tyrone, 13 points. Tyrone obviously played with 14 men for the majority of the match after Frank Burns was sent off. Good win for Galway. I mean, not a great game, to be honest with you. Conditions were very tough, obviously, in Pearse Stadium. I thought Tyrone actually played well, considering they were down for 14 men. They were down to 13 men, actually, at one stage after Noel Morgan got black-carded, and Peter Hart was even playing in goal. So, like not the worst result in the end for Tyrone. Like I thought they played well, but Galway just done what they've done all year long. Is they just keep grinding out wins, even when it's not the most entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Power Joyce mentioned in the post-match interview, Galway were very, very poor yesterday off colour. But the main thing is about Galway, they still won it. They still won the game with playing poorly, and that's a positive sign for them, but largely down to the red card for Frank Burns. Look, it's a topic of a discussion for up and down the country in both hurling and football, the head-high challenge. They don't seem to be given in hurling, for example, but they're given in football. And we go back to referees and stuff like that, but we need a bit of consistency at the same time. Like, if Ronan Maher doesn't get sent off against Cork a few weeks ago, why is this a red card? You know, it's very, very inconsistent from referees and both codes over the last few weeks. And even the Doyle Morgan black card as well for complaining. And then the Galway players, I think Shane Walsh was one of them, Combe or maybe another, was complaining before the Frank Burns red card as well. So why didn't they get shown the line?
Yeah.
You know, it's very, very poor, I think, very poor officiating from in regards to Tyrone's point of view. But for Galway, look, it's a win. They'll get out of it. Like they didn't perform well yesterday in poor conditions. But look, it's the All-Ireland group stage. They have Westmeath in the next few weeks. And despite the fact that David Brady said Westmeath might make it out against Armagh Tyrone, which I found a bit comical, to be honest with you, Aaron. No, I think they should be fine. I think Galway Tyrone should be fine anyway. And look, it's the same for Mayo and Kerry, really. It's about building momentum in these games. The fact that there's the safety net of only 4 teams being knocked out, that's the big thing. There was more onus on the next 2 games we're going to discuss these games. And a lot of people said that during the week as well. So, look, I think Tyrone, Galway, they'd be relatively happy, but I think the main thing was the conditions and the decisions, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like, and as you said, like, I mean, I know Westmeath caused a major shock in hurling and beating Wexford. And I think David Brady would have been laughed out the gate even more if he had predicted that. So you never know in sport, you never know in football and hurling sometimes. But I think it would be one shock too many for the Westmeath men, I think, if they were to take any points off of Armagh or Tyrone, in fairness. But yeah, I suppose moving on then, we'd Sligo 14 points, Kildare 14 points. A game that went, I suppose, neck and neck throughout. Could have went either way, go down the home stretch. And for Kildare, massively disappointing result for them. I mean, like, I suppose after the performance that they gave versus Dublin and how well they played against Dublin, you would have expected Kildare to go away to Markovich Park and get the victory. But apparently it was too familiar for Sligo. They're too used to playing there. The home ground favours them massively. And that's the reason why Kildare haven't won this one. I just have to throw it in there.
Jeez, like, you had to say that. You really had. We wouldn't be a GA Fan TV podcast without you slagging off Kildare for him.
I don't think I'll be allowed into Kildare at this point. I think if I'm ever around Maynooth or any of these areas, I think I might have to, I don't know, wear a balaclava or something.
But at the same time, yeah, like it's a brilliant analogy, to be honest with you. The seats were probably too rocky for the Kildare bench players as well, and they didn't get the result. That was why. But all jokes aside, look, in fairness, like, I seen Patrick Sharkey predicted a draw on your podcast. Fair play to Patrick.
Yeah,
very good prediction. Jeez, like, I feel like he's getting better at predictions now. Fair play to Patrick.
I think what he does is he comes out with one mad prediction he comes out with loads of mad predictions, and one of them every year comes true. So he's got that one ticked off now anyway. So
yeah, and even madder, actually, Jason predicted on my podcast that Sligo would win the game, and I was like, what? I thought Jesus, like, you know, that's mad. You know, I thought Sligo would go up to Kildare like they did today, but I just thought Kildare, this was a big opportunity for them to win today. And like, you look at the next few weeks, they have Roscommon and Dublin, and if they get a few tankings off them and Sligo manage to stay in the game, which they will do over the next few weeks, Sligo could find themselves in the preliminary quarter-final, and Kildare will be absolutely kicking themselves after all the comments about Dublin and Croke Park. You know, I think I like Kildare as a county. I do like them. I like Johnny Doyle. I like Dermot Early, especially that team in 08-09. It was a legendary team in my books. But the way Glenn Ryan conducted himself after that Dublin game, you'd be the whole country would be just kind of laughing at him, to be honest with you. And even, like, I know people criticise Dublin, but that was just a remarkably bonkers opinion, to be honest with you. But look, they couldn't even beat Sligo today, so that's their level. That's their level, Kildare. And it was a poor result for them. But for Sligo, what a result for them, in fairness to them. This was their second game this season against the top 2 division side, and they got the draw. So fair play to Sligo for that. And Sligo, there was a lot of commentary about them saying that the Tailteann Cup would have been better for them. But it turns out this is a good competition for them because the players are going to be improving. The under-20s are excelling. The schools are excelling. The minors are excelling. So Sligo football's on the up. And if Tony McEntee stays on as manager as well for the next few seasons, I'm telling you, the Sligo football is on the up. And this was another step in the right direction today.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it was a huge result for Sligo, in fairness. And Noel Murphy scoring 6 points, Sean Carabine with 4. Seeing Pat Spillane Jr. he didn't come on until the final 20 minutes. So yeah, very impressive stuff from a Sligo perspective. And again, I think it shows that they are closing the gap a little bit on some of the teams above them, in my opinion. And yeah, because when you look at Sligo, they're probably better set up as a defensive team, especially with their manager Tony McEntee having sort of set up that system. Obviously ex-Cross McGlenn player and everything else. So would you think Sligo? I think it goes without saying that we'd fancy Dublin and Roscommon to both be Sligo and Kildare. And it kind of it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? That there's going to be a scenario where one of these teams progresses without winning a game, possibly, in the group, which is a little bit bizarre. But you'd fancy Sligo maybe to be a little bit better in those 2 games. Although Kildare did compete well against Dublin, and with the fact that game's in a neutral stadium, maybe they'll put it up to us this time, or maybe beat us this time. Who knows?
Or maybe the grass will be too long. So you don't know with Kildare. They might, if they lose to Dublin, they might make up an excuse saying, "Oh, this is a hurling ground. This was suited for hurling. So how could we win today?" It's incredible the excuses that Kildare will come up with. But they have to go out and perform against Dublin now. There's no point in crying or anything like that. They have to go and beat them. They had 2 chances in Croke Park to beat them. Not 1, but 2 chances, big chances to beat them. They didn't do so. So this is the chance to do it. And we'll see if they can do it in the next few weeks. They play Roscommon away from home in the Hyde. I don't expect them to win that. Sligo won't win against Roscommon or Dublin either. But I definitely agree with you that Sligo will probably have a lesser losing margin because Sligo are kind of team that will sit back and will try and frustrate the living daylights out of Roscommon and Dublin rather than Kildare, Kildare are a team that could go man on man and get destroyed. You don't know with Kildare what will happen with them in the next few weeks. But it is kind of bizarre on a side note that one of these sides, having not won a game, will progress to the preliminary quarterfinal. It probably just make a mockery out of the thing, if you know what I mean, Aaron. But look, that's the champion we live in, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. And congratulations to Sligo, obviously, for getting that draw. I think David Quinn scored the late points. And yeah, for a Kildare perspective, it's just is the reality really that Kildare are just at the level now of sort of, because when you look at Sligo, obviously promoted to Division 3, you'd imagine Sligo would be good enough to stay in Division 3, and Kildare were nearly relegated to Division 3 at some point. So is that just are these 2 sides maybe this isn't a big shock? Maybe both of these 2 sides are at a similar level.
Maybe so. Kildare struggled in Division 2, so you could arguably say that both of these are Division 3 standard, if you want to say it that way as well. So, both of these sides are probably level. Sligo are only in Division 4, let's be honest, because of the past few seasons, regimes and stuff like that. Not particularly last season, because Tipperary had a bit of a purple patch, and Cavan are too good for Division 4 in general, and Sligo just couldn't compete with them last season. And they didn't get over the line. But this season, they got over the line eventually. But that's because the likes of Niall Murphy have come back to the team. The likes of Paddy O'Connor, the likes of Pat Bland Jr. has been a great addition. You have younger players coming through as well, like the under-20s from last season. Luke Marin will be another player that's coming next season, probably Dylan Walsh, and probably Callus Mulligan and a few others as well from the under-20s. So Sligo football is on the up, and it will be only a matter of time before they catch up with Kildare on Corn Farm. But I stress on Corn Farm because Kildare's under-20s are going very well at the moment, and you have to feel they're going to win a Leinster title sooner rather than later. If they don't, you can't make excuses for that, to be honest with you. With all the under-20 talent coming through, Kildare should be winning under-20 in the next few seasons or so. But yeah, I think right now they're probably on similar paths, but Kildare have more to kick on in the next few seasons, especially after winning 2 under-20s in the last 6 years.
Absolutely. I suppose moving on to the last game to discuss from the All-Ireland Championship, Clare 9 points, Donegal 14 points. Huge result there for Donegal. Obviously their first win of the season since the opening day of the league when they obviously beat Kerry. From what I was hearing online, that Clare missed a lot of chances, a lot of opportunities. They led at half-time. But in fairness to Donegal, like they rallied late on. Kieran Thompson, Caelan McGonigal, Oisin Gallen all getting on the score sheet late on. I think Donegal outscored Clare 6 points to 2 in the final 10 minutes to go on and win the game. So big result for Donegal. I suppose it will take some pressure off the back of Aidan O'Rourke, and it will certainly, I suppose, ease the pressure of some of the players. But big win for Donegal, and I suppose for Clare, it'll be very tough for them now to get out of this group.
It would do, yeah. Clare really had to win this game, especially at home against a Donegal team that didn't win since January. It's kind of one that was kind of flushed away for Clare, unfortunately, especially being 6-3 up at halftime. But you have to give, I know Donegal have been terrible this season in games other than this, and we criticised them on this channel, on my own podcast, and they've been terrible really in a few games. But 11 points from playing the second half to turn this around, and that's an incredible statistic from them. Fair play to Donegal for doing that. Oisin Gallen turning up, Kieran Thompson, very good performance as well. Hugh McFadden had a very good, even though there was a decision in the game that was quite controversial. Again, we talk about the head-high challenge. Why Frank Burns was sent off for Tyrone and then Hugh McFadden wasn't sent off in this game. I don't know why, to be honest with you, and we go back to consistency and all that. That's a big thing amongst the GA at the moment. But fair play to Donegal for winning it. And for Clare, it's interesting because Seamus Brady on Play on GA actually made the comment that Clare would be better in the Tailteann Cup. We got a fair bit of flack off Clare fans for that. But yeah, I'd actually say now, would they have been better off in the Tailteann Cup this season? Because, Colin Collins, realistically, I don't know what the contract situation is now, but he realistically might leave this season, if not this season, next season. For him not to win a trophy with Clare, not even a league title, well, he won a Division 3 title, but still, it's not much really. But not to win a national trophy of significance for that group of players, it's sad, really. And I think that's the point that Seamus was trying to put across. And it's realistically now Clare going to be out of the All-Ireland because they're not beating Monaghan and Clones. With that performance, particularly against Donegal, they're not. And against Derry, probably not either. And what I said in my podcast during the week was that if Clare actually, got their shooting efficiency up, unlike the Cork and Kerry games, they go on and win the game. But by the matter of horses, and what you were saying there, they didn't. And that was the difference between the two sides. And maybe that's why Clare aren't up there with the likes of Donegal, Kerry, a Monaghan or Derry. That's particularly why, because they can't take opportunities at brilliant moments in the game. Clare had better players than Donegal. We were saying on loads of podcasts during the week, Clare actually, player for player, better players than Donegal do have right now. And that was a big chance to beat them. They didn't do it at home as well. So you'd have to question, would they have been better off the Tailteann Cup after all?
Yeah. No, and I think it's a fair point, and I would agree with Shay as well. I think, obviously the Clare team and the footballers and players and everything else, they want to beat Cork. They want to prove that they are all-Ireland level. And in fairness, I think they've done enough in Division 2 in the last couple of years, and they've competed well against some of the top teams to show that they are, they are good enough to play at this level, in my opinion. But I think the point is more so that if they were in the Tailteann Cup, they would probably, they'd be one of the favourites to win it, in my opinion, if not the favourites. And I think, could you imagine a situation where, the Clare Hurlers are playing in an All-Ireland semi-final, and maybe you have it as a double header with the Tailteann Cup, depending on, what obviously you want to make sure all fans be able to attend. But I think it would definitely be a great occasion and great exposure, in my opinion, for Clare football. I suppose we'll have a look at some Tailteann Cup results. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen here just so we can actually have a look at some of the results from the weekend and some of the talking points from some Tailteann Cup games. So as we can see there, it was a good win for Meath, beating Waterford 3-17 to 1-14. Only 9 points though against a team like Waterford. You probably would have imagined Meath would have beaten them by more, but fair play to Waterford for actually competing quite well. And then it was down to 18. Tipperary 6 points. I mean, yeah, like Tipperary football, unfortunately, has regressed massively over the last couple of years. 2 results we expected. Like, any thoughts there? I mean, grim viewing for Tip fans, I'd imagine. And for any Tip fans who were at that game, I'd say probably the majority of them left early.
They probably did. Well, they couldn't leave early because the hurling was after that. So
it was actually, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, they probably arrived. They probably arrived late. Probably, last minute. They were like, "Oh, the footballers are losing. What's the point?" But no disrespect to the Tipperary footballers, but they've gone way back over the last 2 seasons. And I actually predicted Waterford would beat them in Munster. You know what? In the podcast in the next few weeks, I actually might predict it again. See what happens. We'll see if they do beat them this time. But to get third place in the group, let's not forget. So yeah, it's a disappointing defeat for Tipperary. Down or just on a completely different level. Enough said about that game. The better. Waterford against Meath. Apparently, Waterford missed a load of chances in this game to capitalise on Meath. And yeah, like if Meath are going to be this close to Waterford, no disrespect to Waterford now, I know Aoife Fitzgerald's doing a brilliant job there. But if Meath are not going to trounce Waterford, unlike what they did on Saturday night, I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the Tailteann Cup, if I'm honest, Aaron. And yeah, that's a worrying sign for Colin O'Rourke and his players over the next few weeks. And yeah, I think he's a great speaker, Colin O'Rourke, for speak up to Don Lowe particularly, but as a manager, maybe not so.
Yeah. And like I was hearing that Meath had a hugely changed side. Like even looking at some of the names there, like Aaron Lynch, Owen Frayne, these lads, like not familiar names. So I think there was a lot of changes in the Meath side, but as you said, like it wasn't, but again, it's one of them where Meath are probably just trying to save themselves for the down game and some other matches, in fairness. And this game was probably always a formality. In fairness, I suppose looking at the games from Group, I think I skipped Group 1 by accident there for some reason, but we'll come back to Group 1. London 2-6, Cavan 18 points, comfortable result there from a Cavan perspective, and Laois 1-11, Offaly 1-11. I mean, Laois getting themselves a draw there against Offaly, which was a little bit of a surprise considering Laois languishing around, mid-table in Division 4, and Offaly, very close to getting to a Leinster final. So maybe a slight surprise result there.
Maybe so if people didn't watch the Laois and Cavan game last week. But thankfully, I did watch the game last week, and I thought Laois were superb. I thought they were in the first half. I thought they were, they've players there, Mark Barry, Kieran Lillis, Evan O'Carroll are excellent footballers. And Laois looks like they deserve the win here. Very, very good, or deserve a draw rather. Very, very good result for them. But Offaly, all's not lost. Like they'll probably get third in the group, second in the group, let's be honest here. Or even third place side. So it is all doom and gloom. As for Cavan, I think London were actually close in the first half, but other than that, look at Scorpio anyway, but other than that, Cavan were comfortable winners in the game, and London will be targeting Laois next week, but at the same time, that's going to be a difficult game for London. It's on in a neutral venue, so who knows where that'll be on the sea.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe play it at Anfield or something of that nature, or maybe I actually don't know. Yeah, it'd be very interesting. I don't think there is a neutral ground that won't favour Laois, in fairness. But there we go. I suppose moving on to Group 3, big result there for Limerick. Back-to-back wins for them now, so it seems like they've brushed the cobwebs off from earlier in the year. As you see there, 119 to 14 points. James Naughton with 7 points. Paul Maher on the goal sheet as well, and you can see a whole list of other scores there from a Limerick perspective. And big result here for Longford beating Wicklow 3-17 to 2-9. When you think Wicklow coming up from Division 4, Longford going down to Division 3. I did have a few Longford fans on to me who were saying we might have got beat by Limerick last week, but we actually played quite well. We actually competed very, very well. And a lot of Longford fans were actually quite confident going into this game. So big result, and maybe Paddy Christie is finally getting a tune out of Longford, and big win this.
Huge win, and it's kind of baffling how Wicklow have fallen really in the last few weeks. Like, we were talking about them in the Division 4 final as being probably a team to watch in the Tailteann Cup, but yeah, it was a damning result for Wicklow, and it's amazing actually how one result can derail a county season. Like, you look at the Carlow game last week, Wicklow conceding, I think it was 5 points to the bounce in the last few minutes. That was a deflating defeat. And then to lose to Longford like they did. Longford have good players, there's no doubt about that, and Paddy Christie is a good coach. But that's a difficult defeat to take for Wicklow there. But as for Limerick, yeah, the Limerick footballers, they're going to win the Tailteann Cup. I hope they do. I hope Limerick win the Tailteann Cup. But we'll see what happens. Like, they have a good team at the moment. They probably have a team similar enough levels to maybe Division 2, Division 3, bouncing around them kind of places side. So, like, there's every possibility that Limerick could win the Tailteann Cup this season if they have the belief there. So, yeah, I think Limerick, after Bray Dempsey left, have actually been on decent enough form in terms of performances.
Yeah, no, they definitely have, like, back-to-back wins, and definitely seems to be a bit more togetherness in the Limerick group, which is good to see. And as you said there about Wicklow, like, surprise defeat, and that's actually them out of the Tailteann Cup as well, because their head-to-head with Longford and Carlow is obviously gone, and they obviously can't catch Limerick either. And Longford and Carlow are playing each other on the final day, so it will be impossible for Wicklow to finish above fourth. Last couple of games to run through here. Wexford 14 points, Antrim 2-15. Big win for Antrim. That's them all but secure now in terms of finishing in the top two. And then Leitrim getting beat by Fermanagh 119 to 2-7. You can see the scores on the screen there. Ryan Lyons with 1-5 there for Fermanagh. Quite an impressive tally from him. And Sean Quigley with apologies there, folks. I really need to get on to someone about this internet. But we're on my phone here, unfortunately, so we've gone completely rogue. Definitely need to get onto air at this stage. I don't know what is going on. Like, the internet never goes in here, but for some reason it seems to keep going. When I'm doing these streams, I don't know if someone's trying to hack in or something, but yeah, as I was saying there, like, Antrim, big win for them. They're motoring well under Andy McEntee, in fairness, and good win for Fermanagh.
Very good win for Fermanagh, yeah. No, I thought it'd be a tough game for them against Leitrim, but Leitrim, they seem to be on the down, unfortunately, after losing to New York. Like, one result again, like Wicklow, how can derail your season? And Leitrim, it seems that way at the end. But yeah, it was a good win for Antrim actually against Wexford, and for the second week running, I actually predicted against Antrim. So that's come with egg on my face again. But yeah, Fermanagh might beat them in the last game, so it's all good. But like, at the moment in the Tailteann Cup, you have, I think it's Cavan, Down, Limerick, and Antrim already through to the quarterfinals. So, like, it's a decent enough group there. If you disregard Antrim, like, you look at Limerick, Down, and Cavan, you'd have to say they're the three favourites to win the Tailteann Cup this season.
Absolutely, yeah. A huge win nonetheless for Antrim and for Fermanagh as well. I suppose in terms of player of the week and moment of the week, what are we thinking?
Player of the week, I'd probably go Matthew Moran for Mayo. I thought he was superb in midfield, feeding the ball, driving up the field. I thought he was superb in for Mayo. I thought Aidan O'Shea was very good as well, and Ryan O'Donoghue. So basically any of the Mayo team, but I'll give it to Matty Ruan. And moment of the week, it's very slim pickings, to be honest with you. I'd have to probably go Donegal for winning their first game since January. I know Donegal are a Division 1 team by trade, but it was still a very good victory and an important one for the men up north.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I think in terms of moment of the week, yeah, Antrim's win was obviously huge. I think Mayo turning over Kerry was a huge moment as well. I think player of the week for me definitely has to be Aidan O'Shea. I thought he was absolutely outstanding in fairness. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here before my internet decides to completely cut out again. Definitely getting on to air now. I think enough is enough now. I've had enough. I'm making a stand. So, but yeah, Matthew, cheers very much for coming on. And yeah, thanks to anyone who tuned in. We recently hit 4,000 subscribers as well. So great milestone. So yeah, very much appreciate anyone who's been tuning into the show. And yeah, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, make sure to check out Matthew's podcast as well, the GA Statsman podcast. Make sure to check that out as well. And yeah, cheers, Matthew, for coming on. And cheers, anyone who tuned in.
Thanks, Aaron.